something pretty extraordinary has just happened inside the Seventh-day Adventist Church. A massive rift has opened up, and it pits the top leadership against a whole group of its own ministers. So let's get right into this incredible story of faith, finance, and what looks like a real fight for control. At the absolute center of all this is one number: 19. That's right, 19 pastors have been fired by their church leadership. And we're not talking about a quiet retirement or a gentle parting of ways. Nope. Their credentials were pulled, effective immediately. It was a sudden, dramatic, and, as you can imagine, a very controversial move. And this is where it gets complicated, because we're looking at two completely different stories. The church leadership is saying this is about a deep betrayal of the faith, apostasy. But the pastors? They're firing back, saying this is just a way to shut them up for asking tough questions about misconduct. So, what's really going on here? Let's break down both sides. All right, so first up, let's look at the church's official story. What reason are they giving for taking such a huge step against 19 of their own pastors? Well, the official termination notice pulls no punches. The charges are incredibly serious: gross misconduct and, get this, formation of an apostasy organization. Now, gross misconduct is a bit vague, but that second charge, that's an absolute bombshell. The church isn't just saying they disagreed with these pastors, they're accusing them of forming an organized rebellion against the faith itself. And just listen to the language in the official notice. It's so final. This quote shows just how severe the decision was. It's a total and complete separation, telling every church in the conference to basically treat these pastors as outsiders. The door wasn't just closed, it was slammed shut and locked. Now, let's talk about this word apostasy. In a religious setting, this is a heavy, loaded term. For Adventists, it means you've consciously and deliberately turned your back on the core truths of the faith. So you see, the church isn't just firing them for, doing a bad job. They're accusing them of abandoning their faith entirely. That's a much, much bigger deal. But, as you can imagine, the 19 pastors have a completely different take. They actually held their own press conference to push back hard against these accusations. And this slide, it just perfectly sums up the whole fight. The conference is framing this as a doctrinal problem, a matter of heresy, of betraying beliefs. But the pastors say, no, this has nothing to do with doctrine. This is an ethical dispute. It's about how the church is run, about transparency, and about accountability. Two totally different things. And here's their main argument, right from their own statement. They're essentially accusing the church leadership of twisting a serious religious term to silence a debate about management and ethics. They're saying, look, we haven't rejected any of our beliefs, we've just questioned the actions of our leaders. Okay, so if it's not apostasy, what do the pastors say is the real reason they were fired? This is where things get really specific, and the allegations they've made are pretty serious. And it's not just one thing. They've laid out a whole list of deep-seated issues. They're talking about everything from financial mismanagement and shady property deals to outright leadership misconduct and a culture of intimidation. They're painting a picture of systemic problems. Let's zoom in on one of their biggest claims, the WSG OptiCoin scandal. This was a cryptocurrency thing that went bust back in 2023, and a lot of people lost money. The pastors are alleging that some church leaders were actually involved in promoting it, which, if true, raises huge ethical questions and really damages the church's reputation. And it's not just crypto. Another major battleground is church property. The pastors are demanding to know what's going on with valuable assets like land in Narok and a property on Vanga Road. Their argument is simple. This property belongs to the church community, and its management needs to be totally transparent. And believe it or not, the list keeps going. This table breaks it down even more. They're alleging things like high-level immorality and even messing with official records. They talk about dictatorial leadership, basically leaders making big decisions all by themselves. And to add insult to injury, they claim their firing letter was leaked to the public before they even got it themselves. So all of this has led to where we are now, a very public, very tense standoff. Both sides are dug in, and there's no clear way forward. You can see exactly how this thing spiraled out of control. It started as an internal issue, pastors asking questions. But once the church fired them, it just blew up into a public fight. And now, with the threat of lawsuits on the table, this whole dispute could end up moving from the church into a courtroom, which raises the stakes for everybody. So far, the conference leadership hasn't really addressed any of these specific claims.
Not about the crypto, the land deals, or the alleged misconduct. They're just sticking to their original story about apostasy. And that silence has created this complete deadlock, leaving thousands of church members stuck right in the middle, not knowing who to believe or what this all means for their own church.
And that really leaves us with this final, massive question. This is bigger than just one church or one conflict. It's about power, accountability, and truth itself. When an institution's own members are the ones challenging its moral authority, but the leadership holds all the power, including the power to label dissent as heresy, who actually gets to decide what the truth is?